Save 8% off your order at TruTechTools.com by using the Shop Talk discount code. Welcome back to HVAC Shop Talk Live. It's good to see all of you guys out there, all 6 of you. It's good to see all 6 of you. Go to our comments there. We have Susie Dunn. We have Cannon Casey. We have Clint Glasgow. Good to see you guys. I really appreciate that. The little supporting little insignias they give people, they look different on StreamYard than they do on YouTube. People don't know what I'm talking about, but Clint's a show supporter, a subscribe star, and they give him like a little symbol there. It looks pretty cool. Looks pretty cool. What's up, Ivan Hall? I'm going to read something you'll like later, Ivan Hall. Man. Cannon Casey says, what's the best way to pop your hip? I don't know. I have no idea. Me being a young man and spry, don't need to do any hip popping anytime. So I'm just in hog heaven, just not needing to pop any hips. Being a young 42. A 42-year-old. Yeah. Clint's talking about his alien avatar. Now I'm talking about the little thing not subscribe star, but the YouTube member symbol that they give people. It looks different on here. I guess it doesn't matter really. I mean, that's like neither here nor there. So, what are we doing here tonight? Well, it's 9 o'clock. It's much later than I've been doing these things because I didn't have any time during the day today. It was a hectic day. This morning we had doctor's appointments. My mother-in-law has labs. She has to take labs periodically because they have to check and see because she has a form of cancer. They have to kind of track that periodically. And so she does labs periodically too to see if she can tolerate any more chemotherapy, which is, real world issues here, real world issues on the Shop Talk show. So there's doctor's appointments in the morning. Mallory and Andrew, which is my daughter and my oldest son, had a track meet today. So I went out to the track meet and watched them compete. A lot of fun, have a good time, like practicing being a good father, which is what I am some of the time. But they did really well, really enjoy watching them. It's long. It's like 3 hours long. I was going to put the show at like 7, and we were still out there at 7. So I'm like, I'm glad I changed my mind and followed my wife's advice, which was to wait until 9, which is what we've done now. But now I'm slightly tired. So there's a compromise there. We're not going to do very many of these shows this late at night. I have been doing them early, and I'm going to try to do them early, so there might be one again tomorrow morning. 9:30 a.m. is what I've been trying to do. We did one at 4 o'clock or like 4:45, so it'll be whenever, so you never know. Thursdays is pretty set in stone because on Thursday, Tyler Nelson's going to join me live in the morning because I had set up a podcast recording, but now that we're doing them live in the morning, he said, I'll just jump on live. I said, hey, even better. I know Sue got like this Mr. Rogers thing going because it's cold out here. And I could probably take this thing off because once I get going, I'll work up some heat. And I already have a long sleeve shirt on, so I'm going to take Susie's advice here and dump the whole, it's a lovely day in the neighborhood, lovely day in the neighborhood. See, it's even green, like an alien, like Clint. All right, there we go. Good. All right. Like my new wall stuff, guys, I call it R13. It's all the rage here for dampening sound, just to leave the walls off. No sound is dampened better in your podcast studio at home than if you just don't install a wall. It's perfect. It really deadens it. Really deadens it. Okay, so we have several things going on. I got an email about the Bosch. Bosch emails are pretty regular with me for some reason. I guess because I put up the Bosch video. So I have that Bosch email. I was doing a little bit of poking around online just to look at some HVAC news. I was researching that wrench group that Albert called in about yesterday. And if you didn't listen to the podcast or watch the show yesterday, Albert Matara, one of my buddies from Charlotte, which is about 4 hours, 3.5, 4 hours west of me, called in and was talking about his company and how one of the larger companies in his area, and I can't remember the name of it, it's like Morris something, I know one of you guys will know, was purchased by this wrench group with this Ken Haynes is at the helm, and they're building like these huge groups of companies that are under this banner that's not a corporation, but kind of acts like a corporation. We had a long talk about it. It was really, really cool, and it was a new thing for me to learn about. And as I get more knowledge on the subject, I will talk to you guys more about it. So that'll be in the future. The wrench group, these companies are really just, and this is the premise here, there's these big companies coming along and buying up all these smaller HVAC companies and creating this illusion that they're still running separately, but they're all under the same heading, which I dislike that intensely because, like I told Albert on the phone when he called in, when anything as far as a corporation or company gets large enough, to me, it takes on the characteristics of government, and that is a negative in many ways. So I like the smaller shops, but we also talked about how those struggle. I'm releasing a few clips that we discussed on the show. Each show I'll probably pick out a few clips that'll be released on YouTube that you guys can comment on. One of them was the fact that I was talking about how one-man companies have something special to offer because we have a relationship with a customer that a larger company can't have, but we also don't have those huge resources at our disposal that large companies do have. And we'd like to think that our one-man companies, our YouTube watchers, our readers, our trainers, we're really good at what we do, but that's not a guarantee with a one-man company, although I like to think so. If you're a one-man company and you're not good at what you do, I think your company doesn't last long because you don't have the resources to kind of pull the wool over people's eyes with clever marketing. Clint's got the right idea down there. Clint says, buy local. That's what we're working on. And as we discussed yesterday, it's hard to buy local when you can go down to Walmart and buy something for half the price as you can in one of these like retail shops. Like you guys might not even have these where you live or ever go into them, but these like little general stores and shops that are just some guy's store and he's owned it for like 30 years and his dad might have owned it before. But a lot of people don't go into shops like that because, first of all, it's not like Amazon. You don't get things right away. Sometimes you got to order it and bring it in. It's going to cost more. People aren't willing to spend extra and be patient to get something local versus getting it off of Amazon. Yeah. Thomas Bird says one man runs out of time. Boy, that's another great subject right there. One man definitely does run out of time. I think about running the one-man company and doing the service calls and any installs. Well, let me just set the table like this. I ran a one-man company really as my primary income from 2009 to 2017, 18, right in there. At that point, the podcast has started sharing some of the burden as far as income. But for that about 10-year block, it was all about that company paying for everything we needed. And for the last 8 years or so, my wife was no longer working. She was at home taking care of the kids, dealing with the medical issue, epilepsy, which she acquired during that time period. So it was a hectic time period. And doing service calls is one thing. Just thinking about, just going back in the past, since we're kind of reflecting on this, doing service calls and doing like 3-4 service calls a day it's fun for me. I like doing service calls. I think they're great. Troubleshooting and figuring out what's wrong, it's wonderful. So it's rewarding in that way. You do have to arrange for parts. You have to make the calls in between all of your service calls. You got to call into Johnstone, call into Carrier. you got to call in a lot of different people. You have to have relationships with a lot of different companies because no matter what breaks, if you're like this general purpose service guy, you got to have somewhere to get the part from, even if it is Amazon, I guess. So it takes a lot of time, but you go a lot of places. It's very rewarding. And then an install comes along and bam, an install's like, it knocks everything else out of the way. It's like when you step on the ground and everything under your foot scatters, it gets out of the way. That's what an install's like. And it's very difficult for a one-man company who doesn't sub. If you sub, it's still difficult, I think, but less difficult if you use a sub that you can trust. But it's hard for a guy doing it himself because that's going to be your whole day. If you just think about what you typically see on a large company install or even a moderately sized company install, you at least have 2 guys, maybe 3 or 4, couple doing an air handler or coil and furnace on the inside or just a coil or whatever, and then one guy doing a condenser outside, usually like a service tech type, maybe starting it up, or maybe you have both jobs by one guy, meaning like the service tech and the installer. He's like a combined individual that does both. But sometimes you have a service tech come in afterwards and start the unit up. So it gets to be everybody has their own spot. But in a one-man company, you're all spots. And then at the end of the day, you have to go through the billing and stuff, and you have to deal with the customers. And good grief. Then you have customers that are issues after all the hard work, and you take it personally because you don't have that separation between what you did in the field and this office work. So when you work so hard for 10 hours and the customer has a problem, or the system even has a problem, it's hard to deal with. It's very, very stressful. There were some nights where I was extremely stressed out. I remember just being at my wit's end, like frazzled, just like 1 second away from not. I try to depict this properly. You weren't going to go insane or anything like that, but you were just going to have to go outside and scream for a little while. And to just kind of like a pressure relief or something. That's what I feel like. Hey, Joe Shearer is here. I'm going to run through some of the comments, guys. If you're listening to this as a podcast, it is first recorded on YouTube live. After the live YouTube show is over, I usually shut it down. I make it an unlisted video, which you can watch by going to my channel and going to the playlist for HVAC Shop Talk Live. You can watch them all there. I don't want them to clog up your stream or your feed on YouTube, so I take it out of the public videos and make it unlisted. It's still available. If you got a link, because I am using the text list, I fired the text list back up. So if your name is on the notification list for text, I did text you earlier today. If you did not receive that and you are on the text list, it is likely because your phone carrier has an issue with it. And if you have an alternate way you want me to get a hold of you, just let me know. There's a list of names that come back, and I can check you against that if I didn't erase it already, which I might have. But if you routinely didn't receive the text, it's because your phone carrier probably blocks it, or you have to go into your phone and do something. Because I send it as an email and it's converted to text, and some of them don't like that for some reason. I don't know. But it'll be a podcast, maybe not immediately after this one because it's so late. I'm going to try to go ahead and do it tonight where it converts to podcast so you can listen to it. But at the very latest, it'll be done tomorrow morning, and then you'll have a podcast. So you can listen to it either way. So let me run down through here real quick. And thank you guys. All of you who are watching the podcast or listening to the podcast, I always get them mixed up here. All of you that are listening to the podcast on iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify, I want to thank you because we had our biggest month ever this month as far as podcast, and it's just gone out of control in like the last week or so. I don't know why. There's no reason why. I know I've done a lot of stuff over the last 2 weeks, but it really just, it's been a blessing to see it. And it's warmed my heart to see it happen. And I just want to thank you guys because you're the ones who did it. So I really do appreciate that. Let's see here. I'm going to try to run through your comments real quick. Like I said, Joe, I'm glad you caught it live. And Joe says, I enjoy different things about doing installs and service. Each have their pros and cons. I agree. If you have like your time budgeted better than I did, maybe you got more out of it. I did enjoy starting something up for the first time and having that control to set everything properly, set the airflow properly. But you know what? That doesn't guarantee perfection. I know that from my house. I feel like I did a really good job, and we'll get into the Bosch email because the Bosch is a different animal. We can kind of talk about how your preconceived notions get thrown out the window in some cases. Same way with high efficiency equipment. We can talk about that too, because people ask me a lot about that humidity issue with the Bosch. We'll get back to that one. Hello, Adam Haichi. Hope you are having a good night. And let me see if there's any other questions here. Thomas Bird says, as a one-man show, I would work 10 to 12-hour days. The need to work up estimates, it was too much, but I have a hard time telling people no. Yeah, that's the thing. If it's your company, you got to be face-to-face with these people. It's hard to tell them no, because that's your job. And you start feeling like the rug's going to get pulled out from under you if you don't do everything you possibly can, because you're in a position, it's like, I gotta provide for my family. So if I don't say yes to this job, it's almost like I'm being lazy or being, I don't know, like you're not doing your job. But you do have to have some control in that area, which I never really was able to get. But those who can control themselves and say no at the right times, I really salute them, because it's not being lazy. It's not doing the wrong thing. It's how you're supposed to live your life. It's too much. Let's see. Adam Chi says, what's the recourse for install crews that don't care and only strive to be off by 3:30? Hey, man, that's how I started up. Man, that was me. Like when I was younger, I didn't watch YouTube because YouTube wasn't invented yet. Haha, man, I'm old now. But when I started, it was 1994, and I was just doing it in the summertime, earned a little bit of money. I made $162 in a 40-hour week at that time, legit. At that time, I thought I was rich. I thought I was Warren Buffett, guys, because at $162, I could get a VHS tape because there were no DVDs at that point. I saved up and bought a guitar over the summer, which would be about the most fiscal responsibility I've ever shown in my life, even to this day. I bought a Takamine, Take a Mine guitar, electric acoustic. I still remember that. It was destroyed in a fire, in a moment of silence. Sadness. But it kind of primed me for being an adult. So throughout my high school career, I would, in the summertime, work HVAC. I didn't really care. I just did the job. I tried to do it correctly, but I had no special ambition to be any more than any other installer out there. For years after, I was the same way. I finally started reading some of the install manuals we had to read. I still remember reading the Goodman one. That's the one that sticks out that I mentioned before, where it told you how to set the TXVs. When you finally had to put a TXV on a Goodman air handler, which they, looking back, I don't remember them ever having TXVs until like the mid-2000s. I'm sure they did, or they probably did. But when they started having the 13s and 14s, the CPRT, the CPLT, GSH 13, GSH 14, which came after those started to have TXVs, these aftermarket bolt-on Emerson TXVs. I don't remember, maybe. But you started having to read about setting subcooling as superheat, and it would tell you to be, I want to say it was 7 to 9 superheat and 7 to 9 subcooling is what you're shooting for. Then it would tell you how to adjust it. And that was the first time I really got into that. And it was on Goodman. It was on Goodman stuff. And all those TXVs went bad. They didn't all go bad, but a lot of them went bad. But after that point, I started watching YouTube and watching guys like Zarklov. And there's a couple more. Mikey 2501, I think. Hack Free HVAC. These are guys that were out in before 2010. I would watch those guys, and I would realize that there was a whole different world. And I started making videos because I thought it would be fun. And then guys would come in and say, hey, this is wrong. This is wrong, dude. This is wrong here. And at first I was defensive. And it's just kind of natural to say, hey, no, you're wrong, butthole. But it's not the case. I was wrong. And I made myself better for listening to them once I got over the fact that I could be wrong, which is difficult to do. You want to be like, I was right. I could never be wrong. It's impossible. All right, let me read some of these comments here, and then I'll get to this Bosch email that I got, and you guys can help me out with that one if you want. Let's see. Adam Heisch says, as a service tech, we get to try and save face with the customer that just paid for the new install that never ran from startup. Hey, it happens. It definitely happens. I've never really been in that position. If it was an issue in my career, I had caused it because I was typically the service tech and install crew. For a while, I was just an install guy. Then my dad had a different service company that would work with us, and they would come in And every now and then when I ran into them, they would give me like this shocking news about the stuff I had done wrong because I didn't know because I wasn't there. And then they'd say, yeah, there were some major issues there. I was like, are you kidding me? I don't even want to tell you some of the stupid stuff we did because we were moronic. Like not pressure checking the lines before the house was finished. So we would have all these lines that were unchecked with nitrogen. I crap you not, guys. This is exactly what we did. And these guys would come in and say, yeah, you had like 4 leaks we had to fix. It's embarrassing, but it's just one of those things you got to learn the hard way. I know there's people out there that just get to be good without having to go through stuff like that, but not me. I'm a hard way kind of guy. I'm the guy who drives like this to get from A to B. I can't just, go right there. Let's see. VHS is coming back. I have not seen VHS in a long time. Last time I was affiliated with VHS, I was very excited that on the Woot website, I found a DVD/VHS machine for $25. That was 12 years ago, I think. And that's the last time I've been affiliated with the VHS mode of media. Joe Shearer says, you got to put your faith in God and He will provide work and not worry so much that you say yes to anything and everything. Joe's exactly right there. For those of us that are Christian, that have a strong belief in God, that He controls, that guides us in our lives, you really do have to do that. Because if that's your mode of thought, then you taking any control of any situation is pretty much impossible. So saying yes and no and all that stuff is no longer a decision that you're making. You're being guided, and it's much simpler. And to me, a lot less stress if you can 100% commit yourself to that idea of faith. That's the hard part right there, having the faith, because we lose faith so often that we go back to just the way we were right before and getting ourselves into trouble. Let's see here. We have what's up from Memphis. What's up, Raw from Memphis? It's late, guys. Memphis. Good evening to Steve from HVAC Residential Basics. And Adam Heish says, as a one-man shop, I'd imagine you would have more control over being able to fire unreasonable customers or not take the job in the first place. That is theoretically true, Adam, that you would have more control over it. But the ironic thing is, because you have that special relationship with every customer, you are drawn to say yes to everything. Almost like self-preservation. Like, I have to say yes. This is my company. It's just me. I have to say yes. What if I don't have any work tomorrow? What if this? What if that? What if this? You almost are psychologically drawn to that. You have to condition yourself in a lot of ways. In mental toughness, you have to be conditioned as a business owner because there's a lot of things that are going to try you emotionally and mentally, which you have to get strong enough to kind of discern without getting swept up in the moment. Like a customer says, I need this job done tomorrow. And you're running around going back and forth going, what am I going to do? You're just going to have to say, that's an impossibility. I want to do your work, but this is the day I can do it. It'll take this long. A lot of times customers are like that. I run into that, every now and then. I used to run into it all the time where I got to have this thing done by this day. And at first I was like, okay, I'll get it done. And I might get it done. And it would take 18 hours a day, and my wife would hate me, and my kids would wonder where I am. And it's just not the way to do things. Sometimes you got to put your foot down. Now, there's sometimes you might have to step it up in a special circumstance, but you got to tell the special circumstance from just some guy who acts like that, because there's plenty of guys out there who just act like that. Everything's frantic. All their stuff is priority, has to be done right away. And not that you have to cater to those people, but you have to deal with them in a way that you're not going to put them off, but you're going to have to put your foot down and make sure they know that there's a line that they can't cross with that sort of thing. Let's see here. Cannon Casey says, Zach, just ignoring the fact that I'm so much younger than him. I'm 25 now, Zach. I'm not that young. Cannon, that's true. 25. At 25, I was married. I had children and everything like that, which, so that's not young. You can have a lot of life experience by 25. So absolutely, you've come into your own, Cannon, and now you're a powerful HVAC man that just can't stop. And Joe Shearer says, it's a continual cycle between trying to take control and release it back. Absolutely. I mean, if we were perfect, we'd be a different guy. You know what I'm saying? So I have that struggle every day to maintain faith And it's almost like it's one of them things like breathing is involuntary until you think about it. And it's like, also, okay, now I'm breathing for my body. If I stop, I'll die. It's like that with faith. You have to keep thinking about it. You have to keep reflecting back on it. And it's just, it's tough to do, but I mean, it's worthwhile in the end. Always read the manual, guys. Always read the manual. That's what I'm saying. If you want to understand it, NLT is probably the way to go. ESV, NLT. King James, King James might be one of them dyking things written in Japanese. All right, let me read this email, guys. I'm not going to bring it up on the screen because the screen share thing here shows everything on the screen, so I don't want you to see all the random crap I have on here and every website I've ever been to. Just kidding. Wink, wink. All right, let me find it here. Make sure I have the right one. Yep, here we go. This is from David. I'm not going to read his whole name, but it's from David. And he says, Zach, I have watched a few of your YouTube videos and would welcome a chance to bend your ear on an issue I am having with the Bosch IDS 1.0 system. This is in Williamsburg, Virginia, which has high humidity, probably similar to your area. I've tried everything to correct the system's lack of dehumidification. The refrigerant charge is correct. Subheat, that's funny. Superheat, subcooling are in spec. I have verified airflow, flipped the dip switch to 37 degrees Fahrenheit with no improvement. The system never ramps the compressor speed up fast enough to start condensing moisture from the air before the T-set satisfies the temperature. Now here's the key right here. I think guys like Joe, this is the key right here. The compressor speed ramps in the test or force mode to full speed and it will condense water like crazy, which I think is the key here. And you guys can tell me what you think. Bosch tech support was not much help. I have watched all the Bosch training sessions I can find and could not learn anything from them. They replaced a 3.5-ton American Standard constant speed heat pump, condensing unit, and DX coil. The gas furnace was reused as it had very little burner operation. The Bosch heat pump heats very well in the winter because there's no humidity in the winter most of the time. Okay, so here's my theory on this after time has passed. I think I made some improvements by zoning my system and sectioning off what temperature I wanted to be in certain parts of the house. It seemed to help. I think that probably increased the runtime because, like a lot of guys know, zoning is not about energy savings. It's about comfort, and you're going to increase your run time, I think, as an aggregate more. You guys can tell me what you think of that. I believe it's going to run more. So knowing that, the longer run time lends itself to better dehumidification. But the Bosch, I think the key issue with the Bosch after 2 years or so, almost 2 years, is that whenever you have these variable speed units, you have two factors. You have airflow and you have evaporator temperature or compressor speed. Let's say compressor speed and airflow. Now, I'm using my hands as these great ways to illustrate this, I guess. When the compressor speed changes based on the conditions that the Bosch unit senses on the lines or temperature thermistors or whatever, the airflow can go one of two places. In the Bosch IDS 1, I want to say only had one setting. So let's go back to the 1 then. It has one setting. Let's say it's 400 CFM per ton. Let's say it's 3 tons, which is a common size. So you have 1,200 CFM at a very low capacity operation. What does that mean for your air? So to me, that's like a very extreme representation of what happens in a high efficiency system with an oversized evaporator. You're going to have that very high evaporator suction pressure. You're going to have that high evaporator temperature. So it's called apparatus dew point. The dew point of the actual evaporator or apparatus is higher than it normally would be. So you're not going to condense water on that evaporator. And this is going to be, I think, super bad with the IDS 1.0 because of the single blower speed. So if you have that single high blower speed, there's not much you can do about it besides take it all the way down. And then you suffer in capacity, I believe. And that's my theory. And okay, let me try to explain this because sometimes I go through these things. I want to explain it so it makes sense. And I'll go back to your questions, guys. I know you guys are probably chiming in with some good ideas. So If you have that Bosch with 1200 CFM and it's pumping out not 36,000 BTUs of cooling nominally, but let's say it's pumping out 18,000, and you have all of that CFM. Now, what would you expect to see a system that has excessive CFM doing? It's going to push the suction pressure up, maybe not a whole lot, but it's going to push it up a little bit. It's going to push the temperature of evaporation up, or temperature of condensation, where it will condensate up on the evaporator coil as far as the water. So unless you drop the temperature down farther, which run the sucker down basically, lower and lower temperature, you're not going to condense on the evaporator unless it's running at full speed, like he's saying, where your load and your airflow are matched. But if you have a variable speed system made by somebody else, one of the other manufacturers that has a change in airspeed or change in CFM, air volume, with your compressor speed to match it, or maybe in dehumidification mode, maybe it drops below the match, the theoretical match, so it dehumidifies more. That's going to be a successful dehumidifying machine versus the Bosch, which can't do it unless you just drop the airspeed all the way down or create a ton of static. I mean, you could drop the airspeed by creating static. Like if you had a humidistat that sensed 70% humidity, so it created static pressure, like you shut a zone damper halfway in the return duct into the machine, you could create a situation where you could humidify better. That seems like some kind of weird scientist crap that no one should have to do, because it's just nuts. I know that guys are having probably like a bunch of ideas. So let me go to the chat to see if I can find what you guys are saying. Oh, good. There hasn't been too many of them. Okay, let's see if we have anything on the Bosch. Eric B says, have done service for over 10 years, did first install a couple of months ago, and have been back 4 times to fix stupid mistakes. Okay, he's referring back to a different subject, but yeah, I mean, that's growing pains is, I think, what that is. So, no, Adam says subheat is measured on the wireless TXV. Steve says, it's HVAC residential basic. It's late, guys. HVAC residential basic, Steve says, this took 4 times longer than it should have. On the Bosch, do they have to control the fan according to the compressor speed? You're going to control the fan somewhat, like you have a 2-stage sort of effect on IDS 2.0, but not 1.0. I'm almost positive, somebody help me out, 1.0 is a single fan speed, because it's that, in that way it mimics single stage while the Bosch outdoor unit ramps up and down. But to me, its ability to dehumidify will also ramp down as the compressor speed ramps down when it's paired up with the same airspeed or air volume. Let's see. Can't you set the Bosch up to ramp up quicker in terms of getting a higher compression ratio and a lower saturation temperature quicker? As far as I know, you cannot change much. In fact, the advice that I got from people that are wise in Bosch was not to mess with any dip switches or anything like that. And I have IDS too. You have to drop the CFM per ton down. I could not drop it far enough to keep it at a normal temperature. When you reach a certain point, I don't know if it's like you have a diagram, and as you drop one down, let's say you drop the CFM per ton down, you have a capacity line that you finally cross where the machine no longer has the capacity to cool your home. So it's like it's kind of like a little gray area you kind of experiment with, because possibly, unless you add aftermarket controls, which we could wire something up that will change, like I said, change the static pressure, change the airflow, because it is a multi-speed X13 motor. You could switch speeds with a relay and some sort of humidistat if you wanted to. But for mine, I leave it on 1 and 3, so it's on the lowest speed for first stage. Now, I could just leave it in first stage, but the capacity isn't there year-round, so I'd have trouble in the middle of summertime. But I have to leave it on 3 because of the heat strips, because what I'll do is I'll forget, and it's not sufficient airflow for 10 kW. I could step it down to 5 kW probably and get away with that, then lower it down to 1 and 2. My belief is not going to make that much of a difference, though. Joe Shears, I've been saying it was a programming timing issue since I've heard these complaints. Seems like And this is Adam. Seems like it's wanting to help itself restrict slow ramp is naturally killing its latent. It's like this machine does not have like a latent mindset at all. If you put this sucker in Arizona, I'm sure this thing shines. It's like wonderful. But I bet here, it's like you have to add a whole bunch of stuff to it to make it do the right thing. Tom Bird says increase the load. You can increase the load to make it run higher, but see, I don't know about that. Like I thought about outside air options, things like that, but then all of a sudden I'm robbing it of any efficiency that it would have had, any improvements in efficiency. So that seemed like counterproductive, yet it may help the issue. Thomas Bird says, I have a Bosch IDS 1.0 in my house. Humidity was horrible last summer. See, that seems to fit perfectly, Thomas. Joe Shearer says, if someone spoke out about how bad an idea Bosch units were in the very beginning. Yes, that was Joe Shearer. Yes, we had that video does very well, Joe. Just so you know, people love watching the Ralph versus Joe Bosch debate. We had I don't know how long ago that was. It's like 3 or 4 years ago now, I think. Yep, and Clint's right. It's the Bosch debate. Joe Shearer, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, what do you rate the Bosch? Oh, I can't. Worse than hack. I don't think the Bosch is that bad. If you take someone, let's say you take someone like Joe, you take someone like Dallas, and you say, okay, could you make a couple alterations to the Boss and make it work like a Boss? The answer is yes. I have a feeling like we could do that. I don't know why I don't get up there and try to wire a whole bunch of stuff together. Probably because it ticks me off that I would even have to. And it works okay enough right now with the zoning that it doesn't bother me. But you could get up there and make quite a machine out of this thing. It's but why wouldn't they have a circuit board inside that does it for you? That would be the better thing to do, I think. RJ said Joe had it right. Joe had it right. Joe won the Bosch debate so many years ago. Like hack and mow. So get some relays. That's right. And for an example, just thinking about what I would do is, getting like a humidistat that changes the blower speed based on, and it overrides maybe the zoning itself. I had to see how that would work out because the compressor is dependent upon temperatures coming back. So if it's dependent upon temperatures coming back, no matter what we do inside, the compressor is not going to be fooled by it. It's just going to run slightly differently. But we could change the blower speed based on a humidistat and the ductwork. Like if it reached 60%, it would naturally drop down. And we could work it so it's only in cooling with some relays and stuff. And we could build some real tricky looking stuff. It looked like one of them two-stage units from 1987 with about 50 relays in it. It's like go to the supply house and buy 15 9340 relays and a bunch of wire, and you can make it do stuff that you want it to do. But why? Why would you do that? Now, you got to listen to them suckers click all the time? I don't think so. Put a two-stage dehumidistat controller in it. See, it's like that. Maybe I should get up there just to kind of put it out on YouTube to see if we can't make it work a little bit better. We probably can. Maybe I should get up there and do something like that. It's just hard when you're doing stuff like that. Your mind says, I could probably be doing something more productive right now, unless it works perfectly, and then I'm a hero. I don't know. Is there control the refrigerant flow that was flawed? It is a refrigerant flow problem in that when it takes certain measurements, the assessment that the compressor or the technology behind the compressor, like the circuit board, whatever goes into their logic on the circuit board, is not. It is flawed. It is flawed. But that not having the air matching up to it, I think, is just as fatal as a flaw. Not having that airflow. It's almost like a communicating system. Like, oh no, okay, we're now up to a communicating system. Why do we have the Bosch anymore? If we're going to do all that stuff, we might as well buy the one of the other ones. Trying to remember one of them. It's any variable speed unit that has a communicating capability. You're basically trying to build a relays bank full of a communicating system that's not really communicating any longer. So I don't know if that didn't solve anybody's problem right there. I think we can identify the problem, but solving it, I don't know. Is it that critical? At this point, for me, it's not that critical because I've gotten it, you know what I'm saying? The official term is It's much better than before. It's not perfect. It's So I don't know. Any other variable speed system? That's exactly right. I agree, RJ. I think it's you're basically wanting to turn this thing into one of the ones that are already out. therefore canceling out the need to even have it in the first place unless you're in a different climate zone. So maybe that's what the thing is. Bosch wanted to put this thing out, low cost alternative. It's variable speed. Oh, variable speed. Hold on. And I like that. I look down and I see Steve saying, Zach, Bill Porter made a killing with his little circuit board. You can too. And I think, are you referring to the, what is it? Dual fuel circuit board? Bill Porter, I think. Yeah. I can't believe this thing has gone 40 minutes already. I was going to come on here. I don't want to say this, okay, but I feel like I may be sick. Okay, you guys might be able to hear it in my voice. I was like, man, I've been looking forward to doing this all day. It's like, I hope I can make it through without coughing and hacking and stuff. And I hope that I wake up tomorrow and everything's fine. Because I hate to admit it, because when you admit it, it brings it into like reality. So it's not going to happen. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Raw says, just replace that Bosch with a Goodman to solve all the problems. Goodman, properly sized, would have better dehumidification capabilities. 100%. 100% it would. Because at least it's running at 100% all the time. And you can alter that to get even more dehumidification out of it within reason by slowing the blower, adding static, whatever you want to do to get less air across it. I believe it would be true. I can't believe I'm even saying that. So let me see here. I was going to talk about, Linux is going to have a price increase, evidently. I saw that online for you Linux guys, 9%. That's a lot. I'm used to seeing, or I was used to seeing, I'm not like you guys. I haven't been following equipment pricing for the last few years. It's usually like 3% every year, or was, but now it's like 9%. And I don't know if they've had multiple increases like this. I know that a lot of the materials have gone up exponentially because I have bought some ductwork and some other items that were much more expensive this time around. Sheet metal, yow. That was a big difference. It's like I bought a 4x8 26 gauge sheet of metal for $16 before, and it was like triple or quadruple that last time I quoted it. I don't know if I'm just getting that COD pricing kiss on the cheek or what, but that was a lot. So Linux guys, enjoy that. I'm sure that's across the board. Thomas Bird says, what about 410A pricing? Well, 410A, I believe, was at $400 and some, and the last time I purchased it personally, and forgive me for the misspeaking, guys. I think it has to do with a little bit what's going on with being a little bit under the weather. But the last time I purchased it, it was closer to $100. And I have a full jug of it, so I'm thinking I might just sell it to one of you guys for like $350. I don't know. Stay on the line. We'll see what happens. R22 was $1,200 at the place where I checked. Unbelievable. They said all the refrigerants, even the replacements like the drop-in R22 ones, they were all hovering around $400. That's insane. Unbelievable what's going on. I don't know if this comes down. The gas prices are insane. It is tough. It is really tough. I feel it here. I know you guys feel it. If you're on the road a ton running service calls, I know you feel it. It is very, very tough. California gas prices were through the roof. I cannot even imagine, you California guys, how much you had to pay a week in gasoline, especially if you're running service calls all over, wherever. My heart goes out to you because it is tough. It is tough out there, and I don't know. I saw the PVC pipe. Kangaroo guy's talking about PVC pipe. I saw where I had quoted, or I'd gotten a quote from Johnstone for 100 foot of PVC. I couldn't believe it. It's like, this is just nuts how much higher it is. Raw Mesa says here in Memphis, Goodman units up 12% this year, going to be 5% in May. Wow. Cannon says, I first bought a jug of R410A for $89. Yeah, I remember that. I remember $69, $89. I remember, get this, guys, seeing the estimates and invoices from our service partner company back in the day, and the R22 was that much. It was $69, $79. Really crazy. Everybody in the chat now is coming up with their items that are just insane now. Cased A coils, just check stock at 2 major wholesalers, and stock is very, very low. Justin Bieber was on the show a couple days ago, 2-3 days ago, maybe last week. I don't remember now. But he was on the show talking about how train variables in the 20 SEER near him, they're out of stock. 18s are low in stock. It's really crazy out there. Well, I don't know. You guys can speculate why that is. And I don't know. I'm sure there's multiple factors, but it's just wild to be out there in the industry right now. Be trained. Be good. I don't know, guys. It's crazy. But I am going to wrap this up. I know we're late here tonight. I didn't take any phone calls because, you know what, I don't feel 100% here, and I want to come back and try to do this again in the morning after getting some rest, and I'll take your phone calls then. If you don't see me in the morning and I don't tell you guys on social media, whether it be Facebook or YouTube post or whatever, that I'm not doing it, I will be doing it at some time during the day. So just stay tuned. Those of you who are on the text notification list, again, I did text you guys earlier today to let you know what time and give you a link for the show. If you want to join that list, I put a link in the description of the video here. You can find it. If you can't find it or you come back and the video's unlisted and you're not sure how to find it, you can always email me any of your questions at hvacshoptalk@gmail.com. I'll put it up on the screen here. I really encourage you guys because that is the fuel for what we do. I really love talking to you guys when you call in. Sorry we couldn't do that tonight. We'll come back to that hopefully tomorrow morning. Knock on wood. I would love to have you guys come back on. Albert called in last time. Mike Bimko called in last time. We had a great discussion about what's going on with these huge companies buying up smaller HVAC companies. We're going to pursue that, see what's going on with that. We have Tyler Nelson later in the week who's going to come in and talk a little bit more about combustion analysis. That's going to be in the morning on Thursday. And then hopefully Friday I'll be back to end up the week. Again, I want to thank you guys. It was a huge month for our podcast, and it wouldn't be anything without you guys actually choosing to listen to it. I hope you listen to this show and you realize that I'm shooting you straight. What you hear is just me, and all the flaws and anything you learn is just straight up who I am. That's all I can give you. I'm not as smart as some of the other guys. I'm not a teacher like the other guys, but I've been around this stuff my whole life, and I think we have a lot in common, and I think that's where we get places, by bringing us all together, discussing it, putting the problems all in a big bucket, and just going through it and mixing it up a little bit, taking some phone calls. You guys are welcome to come on this show with me. You know, if you're coming on the show, I can get with you, let you know what you need to do to make sure you're prepared to come on here. We can share that way. We can share over the phone. I don't care. I just like having you guys around and talking to you, and I really appreciate you watching, listening, however you do it. I appreciate it. If you want to support the show, you can leave a like. You can subscribe to this channel. You can subscribe to the podcast on whatever app you like to use. You can support at subscribestar.com/Zach-Ciota. That is in the description as well. That's a way to support, donating $1, $5, $10, $25 a month to the podcast, which I really appreciate. And I'm going to get out of here, guys. I'm going to try to turn this thing into a podcast real quick before I head in and go to bed. And I will see you on the next one.